read a lot of the books, and it's been one of my hobbies and one of my interests for a very long time. So that's where I'm coming from. And at the end, I'm going to give you resources that you can go to learn more about NLP without having to go to seminars. I'll give you some reputable books to go to. And also I'll tell you some of the good seminar tapes to listen to. So that's a little bit about me. So, my goals for the talk. How many here have heard of NLP? Wow. I'm basically doing this talk because there are a lot of people who have heard of NLP, but there are more people who have heard of NLP but have a really wacky view of exactly what it is. And a lot of that is because the only way to learn about NLP is by going to a seminar. And people just don't have the money to go to seminars, and when they advertise the seminars, they say all this crazy stuff, the theory of excellence or hypnosis, and people just don't know what's going on. People think that NLP is all about mind control, which it really isn't, although you can use it for mind control. All right, so my first goal is to give an introduction to NLP, and this is just an introduction. I'm going to try to squeeze like a week-long seminar into an hour, right? So I'm going to skip a lot of stuff. I'm going to go really fast through a lot of stuff. There's a lot of information on these slides. So I would suggest that you go back later, look at the CD, look at online, look at the slides, and it will all make sense to you more later on. So that's my first goal. And my second goal is to give you tools for using NLP to influence. I thought that looking at NLP from an influence standpoint would be a good thing to do at a hacker convention, because a lot of you are into social engineering, but a lot of you want a minute, right? All right, so in order to give you tools, I'm going to give you several specific tools. One of them is gaining rapport, and I'll talk a lot more about that. Motivation strategies. I might do submodalities. I might skip through it because of time restraints because I want to get to the good stuff, which is the Milton model. Trust me, that's the good stuff. That's the hypnosis stuff. You want to learn that. So what is NLP? This mic is kind of... All right, so what is NLP? One of the reasons why you're not going to hear one definition of NLP is because NLP isn't the study of anything. You can't put it in one sentence. So what I basically say, and like if you read the books that I'm going to show you in a little while, they'll say that NLP is the study of, the science of the science of excellence. And that is really ambiguous, and I think it's ambiguous, for a reason, to get people interested in it. It kind of makes sense, but that's not really what NLP is. So what I say is that NLP is first and foremost a philosophy about how the mind works. And it's also a set of tools for using that philosophy to do a wide variety of things. Some of those things include hypnosis, therapy, change, all sorts of different things. And so what I'm going to do in the introduction is give you an introduction to the philosophy of NLP. And the philosophy of NLP, and NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And you can break that down, and that'll tell you the different parts of the philosophy. First, there is the neurology. And that includes our five senses, hearing, seeing, touching, tasting, 5 senses. Linguistic refers to language and the way we use language to describe our world. One of the major theories in philosophy, psychology, and linguistics is that the way that we interact with the world, the way that we perceive the world is through language. If we don't have a word for it, it's very hard for us to perceive. And someone say it's impossible for us to perceive without a word for it. So that's one part. And then programming. Programming refers to the habitual and often sequential nature of our thoughts, feelings, and actions. I'm going to go over the presuppositions of NLP, and I'll go over this a little more in detail. But basically the idea is that, the brain is a computer, and the way that the brain works as a computer is to do the thing that spends the least amount of energy. So what we do is we get into habits. We have certain processes, certain sequences we go through to do things, and we do the same thing every time. We might not realize or recognize what that sequence is, but we always go through it. NLP is one way of recognizing what that sequence is, finding out how we use it, and finding out how to change it, finding out how to make better sequences, and so on and so forth. So the history of NLP. NLP started in the 70s by two guys, Richard Bandler and John Grinder. They basically, let's see, John Grinder was was studying linguistics, and Richard Bandler was studying psychology. And they decided to go out and study successful therapists. There you go. So they studied successful therapists. They wanted to find out if these therapists, like Virginia Satir or Fritz Perls at the time, these therapists were really successful at what they were doing. And they wanted to find out if there was a way of modeling what they were doing, trying to figure out linguistically exactly what they were saying, and if there was something common between all of them. And by finding that out, they were going to create a model of successful therapy and then be able to teach it to other people. So they went in believing that they were going to be able to do this. So they observed patterns in their behaviors. And out of this study came the book, The Structure of Magic. It's actually two books, The Structure of Magic 1 and 2. And that book describes what is known as the meta model. Now, the meta model is basically the result of all of this. Basically, they observed the therapist and found out what questions they asked. And the meta model is a way of asking questions to get to the real nature of what someone is trying to say. A lot of times people will be ambiguous about what they're saying, or they'll leave out things in what they're saying, or they'll say things like, I am really fascinated by this person. Now, if I say I'm really fascinated by someone, it makes sense to me. My idea of what fascination is and the process that fascination is in my mind is unique to me. Other people might have different processes for fascination. So if I tell someone that I'm fascinated with someone else, then I'm not really telling them what's going on in my head. And the meta model is a way of getting to that core. And it creates a really successful therapeutic context. Now, after the Structure of Magic 1 and 2, Richard Bandler and John Grinder were contacted by someone who introduced them to Milton H. Erickson. Now, Milton Erickson at the time was known as the most successful hypnotherapist in the world. He was doing stuff that no one could figure out. He could take people who said that it was impossible for them to hypnotize, and he could shake their hand and do the handshake induction and have them go under in 10 minutes. And no one understood what was going on. I mean, even Erickson said that he didn't quite know exactly what he was doing. He had just developed throughout the years this system that was working. And so somebody said, oh, well, okay, so these guys are really good at modeling therapists. What's going to happen if they model Milton Erickson? And what came out of that is the Milton model. And I'm going to teach you a little bit of the Milton model. Basically, what the Milton model is a way of indirect hypnosis. It's a way of indirectly communicating with the subconscious mind by manipulating the substructure of linguistics. So when I say, basically it's the reverse of the meta model. Where the meta model is you're trying to find something more specific, the Milton model seeks to leave things out and to be ambiguous so that the mind has to fill that stuff in. And by doing that, people go inside themselves, and they're able to find resources within themselves, and they're able to more communicate with their subconscious, and by doing that, become more suggestible. You don't have to know that, but that's basically what indirect hypnosis is. And I'll go over the Milton model a little bit later. So not only did they get the Milton model out of that, and this really brought NLP just light years ahead of what it was. The Milton model is what took NLP to what it is today. It also proved that powerful skills can be duplicated. Because what they did was they took Milton Erickson's way of hypnosis, they modeled it, they used it themselves, and then they were able to successfully teach it to other people. Also from the Milton model and from Milton Erickson, they got what are known as the presuppositions of NLP. Presuppositions are basically assumptions, and I'll actually go over that later. The first one is the major tagline of NLP is the map is not the territory. Basically what that means is that, okay, imagine you're looking at a road map. You lay a road map out of, lay a road map out of Las Vegas. Now, that road map is really useful. You can use it to find your way. You can use it if you get lost. You can even use it to describe the landscape, in pretty specific terms. But that map is not Las Vegas. There is an infinite amount of complexity in the actual thing, but the map only describes what is useful. The map is not the territory in NLP means that your mind does the same thing with reality. The idea is that reality is really bombarding you with an infinite amount of information, but you're filtering that information through a map that you create, basically of your world through language and through the language describes your subjective experience. So every experience has a structure. That's basically the same thing. I'm going to go a little quick through these. There's a lot of them, and if you go to get the books, go do some research online, you'll be able to get these a little bit more in depth. But every experience as a structure is basically the same thing as what I was talking about with like fascination. Everything that you experience has a sequence, and it's usually in sequential order, and it's usually you're able to figure it out. You're able to influence it. So every experience has a structure. The mind and body are parts of the same system. Anything you do to the body will affect the mind. Anything you do to the mind will affect the body. The idea is that there's not this separate mind and body, but that they interact with each other. If one person can do something, anyone else can learn it. The idea is that we are all human beings. We all have basically the same hardware. So to think that one person can be really good at, social engineering or can be really good at programming and you can't is pretty absurd, because we all have the same thing. We all, however, think differently, but that does not mean that we have different brains. So if we're able to think like another person, we're able to do the things that the other people are able to do. People already have all the resources they need. Just the idea that it's basically like resource. When I talk about resources, they're talking about memories, emotions. You think about some people are really confident in one situation. Like some people are, in the military, and they can go out and, jump out of a plane and feel okay with it. But when they're up in front of people, they get nervous and feel like they're going to throw up, right? So why is that? It's because they're using their resource for confidence in one place and not in the other place. The idea is that they have that resource to be confident, but it's somewhere else. And NLP can help someone to use resources more widely. And yeah, and that's one of the applications of NLP in therapy. You cannot communicate. Basically, the idea is even if you're not speaking, as long as you're within eye shot of someone, or you are communicating with them. There's no way to not communicate with someone except not see them, not be anywhere near them. There is one statistic. I don't really like statistics all that much, but there's one statistic that says that 70% of our communication is nonverbal. So, think about that next time you try to have a deep, meaningful conversation online. Think about how much you're missing out on the real communication. A lot of, that's where LJ drama comes in. Anyone know? Okay. My friends are going through LJ drama right now, so I keep reminding them about that. The meaning of your communication is the response you get. You may have an intention when you communicate with someone, but if you say someone to someone and they get angry because you said it, your communication has triggered something in them to make them angry. So it's not about what you intended to do, it's about the response that you're getting. So you have to change your communication to match the response that you want to get and the other person. Underlying every behavior is a positive intention. This is one of the ideas also in the therapy of NLP, where a lot of people, when they're depressed, right, and they're not feeling good, it's not necessarily because their brains are working poorly. It's because their brains are working really well, but they're not using them in the correct way. One of the easy ways of describing this is just to say that a lot of people ask themselves questions, and when you ask your subconscious a question, it will answer it, no matter what question you ask them. So a lot of people, when they're feeling bad, they ask themselves, why do I feel so shitty? And their subconscious says, well, here you go. There's this list of things. Here's why you feel shitty, So NLP teaches people to ask better questions, to ask questions such as, how can I get out of this? How can I feel better? People don't think to ask these questions because they don't think that they have the resources to answer them. But the truth is that you have the resources to answer these questions. And talking about answering questions, if you guys have any questions, I have stuff to give away. So I'll just give these away for good questions. And, there's no such thing as a bad question, so. Yes. To get over the fear of it? Getting rid of fear, and one of the big things of NLP is a phobia cure. It takes 20 minutes, one session. It all deals with the way that you look at things in your mind. People think that change is a long, painful process. Change can be very quick. It only takes the ability to believe that you're first able to change. If you don't believe that you're able to change, then change will take a really long time until you believe that you're able to change. There are, I don't know specifically, but it's not subliminal. Actually, I'm gonna go over the books later, but this book, NLP, New Achievement of Technology, is a very good book for that. It goes over a lot of the NLP techniques and will actually take you through them. They're basically thought exercises. They're not really subliminal. Oh, yes. Newbies practicing hypnotism. When I get to, well, I'll just tell you right now. Basically, hypnosis is not anything all that special. Basically, when you're driving down the road and you suddenly, you're suddenly at your destination and you don't remember how you got there, that's hypnosis. It's not a state that makes someone do anything you tell them to. Basically, hypnosis makes people more open to suggestions, but people won't do things that could go completely against their core beliefs. So newbies practicing hypnosis, it can be dangerous, but not extremely dangerous, because there's always a block in people's minds, and people, don't usually hypnotize themselves because they don't want to be hypnotized. They usually hypnotize themselves because they want to be hypnotized. And people hypnotize themselves all the time and not realize it, basically. So it's not something that's, you're not going to have someone, walking around like a zombie doing everything you ask, You might see that on stage hypnosis, but basically what that is people's natural exhibitionist tendencies. In stage hypnosis, they usually bring up a huge group of people, and then they take the people out that aren't exhibitionists to begin with, basically. So to answer your question, it's dangerous, but it's not dangerous to the point of needing to be illegal or something like that. Yes. By the way, if you guys want some books, just come up here. Yes. Could you come up to the mic?
Which one? What's the best one for me? Hacking this one? Okay.
All right. What? Yeah, let's actually let me no. What I meant was, yeah. Well, what I meant was for the people who answered the question. Sorry about that, you guys. Yeah, I know. I screwed over my communication. I was really ambiguous. Sorry, you guys. I gave a command and everyone just followed it. Jeez. All right.
Are you viewing this as temporary or as a permanent solution, or will a recall of a past event? Are you viewing this as a temporary or a permanent solution, or after you go through hypnosis and you gain this new attitude, if you recall a past event, will it trigger it back to what you used to be?
It can trigger it. It's really about you can do it in one session and it can come back. However, the exercises are so easy that you can just do them again. Okay, actually, let me do this. Let me just say we're gonna hold questions until afterwards. People are just, yeah. Yeah, I have lots of information. Actually, afterwards, and also I'll be around. I'm not going anywhere. So after the talk, please, ask me questions. All right. And the last one. Let's see. People are always making the best choices available to them. That idea is just basically people are always making the best choices that they believe they have. If you give someone better choices, they'll make better choices. And the last one, if what you're doing isn't working, do something else, do anything else. A lot of times, if something isn't working, people just do more of what isn't working. The idea is you just do something else, anything else. If you're inside and you feel depressed, go outside. It's really that simple. And maybe it's not the solution, but it's a step. You got to just do something else. Okay, let's get to the good stuff. We're done with the theory. Let's get to the application. All right. So building physical rapport. And the way that you basically, when I say rapport, what I mean is that you're in. I mean, the best way to describe it is rapport, but you're basically on the same level as someone. And the secret to liking is that people like people who are like them. A lot of people say opposites attract. That's not necessarily true. People like people who are like them. So the way to build physical rapport is mirroring and matching. Now, just as like sort of a disclaimer, and I'll go over it a little bit later also, when I say mirroring and matching, I don't mean mimicking. There's a difference. If somebody has an accent, don't mimic their accent, or I mean, unless that's something you do. People do that. But be congruent if you're going to do it. Okay. So body position, posture, movement, rhythm. Body position is really simple. People stand different ways. Some people, let's see if I can get this. So some people stand with their arms crossed. Some people stand with one foot out. Just you just kind of match the way they're standing. Again, don't mimic the way they're standing. You know, if somebody is standing with their foot out, you know, you can stand with your foot a little bit out. Although body position is actually a little easier to get a little bit more dangerous and really start mimicking people, because a lot of times, you know, a lot of times when you see people who really know each other and are talking to each other, you know, they'll be facing each other, their legs will be crossed in the same way, their head will be turned in the same way, their arms will be in the same way. So you can go pretty far with this. Posture, same thing. You know, if people stand slunched over, you know, upright, same deal. Movement. This is something where you want to be careful with mimicking. If somebody does something like, you know, scratches the back of their neck, you can go ahead and, you know, scratch your shoulder. You know, or if somebody, you can match leg movements with arm movements. If somebody moves their leg, you can move their arm, and you can move your arm and vice versa. It's basically just having a reciprocal movement to go along. Body rhythm is good. A lot of people will move really quickly. They'll move slowly. They'll move in jolts. They'll move in like smooth curves. You want to just sort of match, you know, the way they're moving. Now, breathing is more important than you'd think. There is breathing is more important than you'd think. I could tell there's some NLP people in here that are recognizing the commands I'm giving people, right? Okay. Don't forget to breathe. Whatever you do, I'm not suggesting that you forget to breathe, but when you do. Okay, so breathing, there's this, you know, while getting into like the New Age stuff, the idea is, you know, your breath really is the foundation for all the rest of the things you do with your body. If you want to relax, the best way is to breathe deeply for, you know, 20 minutes. You know, so if you begin to match someone's breathing, you can gain rapport very quickly, and you'll find yourself automatically gaining rapport a lot of the time just by matching breathing. And Milton Erickson does this with hypnosis by matching someone's breathing. But he also paces, and we'll get into that later. Voice. Voice is also a big thing. Voice tone. So if some people have really, really high voices, really, really annoying voices, you know, you can match that if you're trying to get rapport. Although it's a really annoying high pitch, I suggest that anyone with a high pitched voice, get over yourself and lower your voice, because people will take you much more seriously if you have a lower voice tone. Speed. Some people talk really fast. Some people talk really slowly. Be sure to match that, because if someone is talking really slowly at you and in a really low tone, and you talk at them like this, and you know, they're not going to listen to you. Well, they might listen to you, but you're not going to have rapport. So don't mimic. Again, don't mimic. Don't try to mimic their accents. You know, unless you find yourself naturally. Some people find themselves naturally doing that, matching accents. Sometimes I find myself doing it. It's just something that we do. It's part of human nature. But if you're going to do it consciously, be congruent about it. You know, if you're in the foreign country matching accents, do it the whole time you're there, or you're going to get caught. All right. Now, building physical rapport is something you've probably all heard about, at least a little bit. Matching verbal rapport is something that you'll hear about more on the tapes and more in the books. And this is something that's also very important, and something that most people don't think about. Basically, okay, so you've heard of the representational systems. You've probably all heard of representational systems, you know, visual, auditory, kinesthetic. And just as a side note, some people will tell you, they'll make you fill out that form, you know, and they'll say, you are a kinesthetic. That is bullshit. There's no one here that is a kinesthetic. People use different representational systems in different contexts, and some people lead with different representational systems. But does not mean that everything you do is kinesthetic. One NLP trainer said, if you go to an NLP seminar and they tell you you're a visual, ask for your money back, because they do not know what they're talking about. So people usually, there's the representational systems, and people usually prefer or lead with one or two. So with that in mind, how do we use that to match someone verbally? What people might not realize is that we will give off our representational systems by the way that we talk. And the way to determine this is through something called predicates. And basically what predicates are is everything after it, including the verb of a sentence. So, if I say, I went to the park yesterday. The predicate is went to the park yesterday, everything after the verb. Now, sometimes predicates can give away the representational systems. And I'll show you how. Here's an example. Somebody says, I can see what you're saying clearly. Now, somebody who says, I can see what you're saying clearly, as opposed to, I can hear you loudly, or I can get a grasp on what you're saying, that person is using a visual representational system. Now, in NLP, it's taught that communicating with someone using the same representational system they're using can help to gain rapport. So if somebody says to you, I can see what you're saying clearly, say, we're seeing eye to eye, or something like that. And I'm not going to leave you in the dark. I'll give you some examples. Some visual phrases. I see what you mean. We see eye to eye. The future looks bright. Some auditory phrases, loud and clear, unheard of, word for word. Kinesthetic phrases, I can grasp that idea. I got the hang of it. I will get in touch with you. And you won't see olfactory or gustatory phrases all that much, but there are people out there who experience their world through food. I've met some of them, so be aware that people will really appreciate you using these sort of phrases. And these are mixed together because taste and smell are mixed together. So that's basically building rapport. So let's see. I have 30. Okay, so I'm going to skip submodalities, and I'm going to go, but I'm going to do this motivational strategies. So once you've gained rapport, it's a lot easier to influence someone. Just gaining rapport when somebody says, I just trust this person. I don't know why, but I really do just trust them. Then, what they're saying is you're in rapport with them, basically. So once you have that down, then you can go into influencing things. You can do influencing stuff before rapport, but it's not going to work as well. Or it might not even work at all sometimes. So what are metaprograms? Metaprograms are perceptional filters. Like when I talked about before, the map is not the territory. Metaprograms are basically that map. And there are a lot of them in NLP. The one I'm going to go over is motivation strategies. And there are basically two motivation strategies that people use. One is toward, where people are motivated towards their goals and go for what they want. The other one is away from, motivated to avoid what you don't want. Now, it's probably better to have a toward motivation strategy. However, most people have an away from motivation strategy. So to give you an idea of how this works in real life, people who are toward motivated will get out of bed because they're thinking about what they're going to do today and how much money they're going to make, or how many new people they're going to meet, or how close they are to that goal. It's really positive. And away from people get out of bed because they don't want to be late. They don't want, they're seeing images of their boss yelling at them, and they're like, oh, my boss is going to yell at me. I don't want that to happen, so I'm going to have to get out of bed. And that's basically how it works. I'm not gonna do a submodality demonstration, but I'll basically talk about what submodalities are and how to use them in using with motivation strategies. If you get some of the books or go online and do some more research, you can get a lot more into this. Actually, let me just explain exactly what submodalities are. Modalities are visual, auditory, kinesthetic, right? So submodalities are basically, so in visual, it's how big or bright a picture is in your mind, or how close it is to you when you think about it in your mind. So this comes with the idea that the way we think and perceive about something is directly linked to the way we feel about it. So when we think about a situation in our minds, it's big and bright in front of us, then that means something to us. You have to look at it as meaning different things to different people, but for the majority of people, when an image is bigger and brighter in the mind, it's a lot more positive, it's a lot more, you're a lot more motivated to do whatever it is. So for visual representational system, the bigger and brighter an image is in your mind, the more real, close, or attractive it feels. So how do you use this to influence someone? Pretty simply. Use submodality in phrases to make the picture that you want in their head as big and bright as possible. And you can bind them with motivation strategies. So have a couple examples. They're a little bit extreme and kind of cheesy, actually, but it gets the point across. So for away from, let's read it here. I know you want to avoid a potentially big situation by pissing off the boss. So do I. Let's just get this done before it gets any bigger. I don't know if you can see things that are underlined here. It says, okay, so here, you want to avoid a potentially big situation. So that's a submodality word. Thinking about the images that they're going to create in their head. You can't think about something without having an image associated with it, or a sound associated with it, or something subjective associated with it. So this taps into that. So you want to avoid a potentially big situation before it gets any bigger. So that's for away from. For toward, I know you want to make the boss happy, and if you do this, I know he'll have a big, bright smile on his face, and the future you want in the company will be closer than ever. So have your underline, big, bright, and that's a submodality word, and then closer than ever. So brighter, closer, more attractive. Great. All right. So now the fun stuff, the Milton model. Now, the Milton model is something that was developed by something that was developed from the study with Milton H. Erickson. And it's used to pace and lead a person's reality, to distract and utilize the conscious mind, to access unconscious resources, and it's used for hypnotic induction, therapy, and influence. I'm not going to go over all the details with it. I'll refer you to a book that goes over it in extreme detail, but I'm going to give you a few little tools for it. But first, let me talk about what pacing and leading means. Now, I've already taught you basically what pacing is. Basically, pacing is rapport. So once you've gained rapport with someone, you're starting where they're starting. Pacing like how fast you're not pacing. Not pacing by walking back and forth. No, pacing in the terms of you're pacing them like you were walking next to them, right? And you're walking at the same speed as they are. And you can actually try this with someone, a really good pacing and leading experiment. And I'll tell you that after I talk about leading. But pacing is basically you start where the other person is. So that's rapport. Also, describing an ongoing experience can also do it. I'm a little bit short on time, so I'm going to go a little bit quicker through this. Okay, so leading, once you've started where they're starting, you can then begin to make suggestions very slowly. Usually it's you pace. Usually you pace, and then you lead, and then you pace again, and then you lead some more, kind of thing. Well, I think it's actually pace, 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 lead, pace, pace, lead, pace, lead, 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 kind of thing. Indirect deep structure of sentence. All right. There we go. Okay, so techniques for the Milton model. So basically, like I said before, the Milton model is the reverse of the meta model. So its whole purpose is to make communication vague, but in a way that is leading the mind that you want to influence in a certain way. So one of the major techniques is ambiguity. And an example of ambiguity would be certain things might come to mind. You might say when you think about being relaxed, certain things might come to mind. What does that mean? That means something personal to the person that you're talking to, and that means that it's going to be them making the images, and they're not going to, you're not telling them, think about the last time you were playing golf. Maybe you don't play golf. You're telling them certain things might come to mind, and that's a lot more effective. Another one, people can. People can begin to feel more comfortable when listening to a good speaker. So who are these people, right? Are you talking about the audience? Are you talking about a speaker? Are you talking about people in a foreign country? You're just saying people. But in order to really understand that sentence, people will make certain assumptions about it. And so some people will assume that it's them. And that's the goal of that one. So another one is presuppositions, which are assumptions that have to be made in order to make sense of a sentence. These are really powerful because your mind has to process things that are given to it. You can't talk to someone and have them not process what you've told them. So your brain has to make sense of these things somehow. So one of the ways of doing this is by saying something like, will you be more relaxed if you stand up or sit down? Seems like a pretty innocuous sentence, but what's the presupposition here? That you'll be relaxed no matter what, right? And this is Milton uses this, and you can use this in your own way. I'm not here to tell you how to use this stuff. I'm just showing you how it's done. All right. So after you've told me what I need to know, you can go back to what you were doing. So this, of course, has a presupposition that you're going to tell me what I need to know. So those are two examples of presuppositions. Another one is embedded commands. And there's a lot of myths about embedded commands. Some people think that embedded commands are like, you're just talking like this, and you're just saying something, give me money, and you just keep talking, right? That's not an embedded command, although that's subliminal, and there's been some research in that it actually works. But embedded commands are ways of structuring sentences with commands in them in a way that the sentence itself seems very innocuous. So, for example, I don't know if you can listen carefully to what I have to say. Now, this is just it doesn't mean anything. I don't know. I'm saying something about myself. I don't know if, right? But the command here is listen carefully to what I have to say. Now, one thing about commands that I should point out is the way to do it most effectively is to actually change the tone of your voice. We actually have different voice tones associated with different types of sentences. So if I say something and my voice goes up, it's sort of a question, right? If I say something and my voice doesn't do anything, I'm just dictating it. But if I say something and my voice goes down, it's a command. So what you want to do is you want to say it like, I don't know if you can listen carefully to what I have to say. It's hard to really pick up, but you just gotta think about, you have to separate it in your mind. You think about, I don't know if you can listen carefully to what I have to say. And unless somebody knows NLP, they're not going to pick up on it. And if somebody does know NLP, they'll realize that you always have a choice to follow a command or not. It's not like if I say this command, it's going to happen. It's just you always have a choice. But some people are more open to things in different contexts. When I talk, people are able to listen carefully to what I have to say. This combines two different things. This combines ambiguity and embedded commands. Who are the people? And then you can see the command there. And the last one is a combination of a whole different things. It goes, you don't have to listen carefully to what I have to say, but as you do, you'll begin to realize how you can use NLP in your own life. And I hope you take that one to heart. All right, so sources and resources. It's really hard to find good resources on NLP because there's a lot of people who think NLP is mind control, or there's a lot of people who are making a whole shitload of money off NLP. I mean, $2,000 for a week seminar, or $2,000 for a weekend seminar, So I have some books that I'll show you. One of them is Introducing NLP. This one. It's a really great resource for NLP. It goes through just, the Milton model, modeling, meta model. It goes through everything in one book. And you can pick this up Amazon, wherever. The other one, it's one I was talking about before, NLP, the New Technology of Achievement. This book is really good because it's interactive. It teaches you NLP and all the different techniques, but it also takes you through all of the exercises. And the idea in therapy and in NLP is you go first. If you want to use NLP, use it on yourself first, or have someone else use it on you first. But this is a really good book, even if you're not all that interested in NLP, but you're interested in self-help and things like that. This is a great book. And if you're really, really interested in, or even just sort of interested in in Milton Erickson or Indirect Hypnosis, I would definitely suggest this book. This is The Patterns of the Hypnotic Techniques of Milton H. Erickson, Volume 1. There's 2 volumes. Get Volume 1. If you really like Volume 1, get Volume 2 because it's a lot more complicated. But this has a couple sections. One section goes over different articles written by Milton Erickson. Another section analyzes those articles by Richard Bandler and John Grinder. And then another section just gives you all the techniques. So that is my talk. And I have like 3 minutes for questions. And if you have, I can take 1 or 2 questions. I can take 1 or 2 questions, right? Yeah. Come up to the mic, yeah.
I was just wondering, would you use this technique over a period of time to talk your boss into giving you a raise or promotion or something along those lines?
You could if you really wanted to. I would not suggest that you go out and do that now, but if you were to do it.
He's not here.
Oh, okay. You can, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, if you want, these are the. These are just the books. These are just my display books here. If you want a free book, I can give you writing great code.
I already write great code.
Who wants to write great code? I have stuff to give. All right.